For letting people into the room, I'd like to say good afternoon, everyone. Make sure that you're on mute. My name is Deborah Williams, and I'm the Director of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion at Strides Toronto. We're so glad that you joined us today for one of our many sessions being held during Black Mental Health Week. And this evening, we're talking with author Julene Butler about her children's books that she has written to share her journey with anxiety and rising above anxiety. Before we move on, I'd like to have some background information on Black Mental Health Week. Just so you know, this is being recorded so that it can be viewed again on the blackmentalhealthweek.ca webpage, or for you to share with others after the session is over. Black Mental Health Week is designed to support positive mental health of Black communities and individuals by providing alternative ways to support mental health and wellness. This year's event will work again to amplify the voices of Black communities and bring much needed awareness to the historical and current effects of systemic anti-Black racism on mental health and wellness. The theme for Black Mental Health Week in 2023 is Be You, Be Well. And our presenter today will be talking with us with that in mind. There's going to be a short survey in the chat for you to complete to provide feedback before the end of the session. So please consider filling that out before you leave the session today. Again, the session is being recorded and will be available for viewing later on the blackmentalhealthweek.ca website. Next, we're going to have a land and ancestral acknowledgement. So take a moment of reflection as we respectfully acknowledge the sacred land in which we gather today as the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations. For thousands of years, this has been the land of the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, Anishinaabe, Seneca, Chippewa, Inuit, Métis, and the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit Peoples. We share responsibility with the caretakers of this land to ensure the dish is never empty and to restore relationships that are based on peace, friendship, and trust. We take this moment to openly reflect on the history of these lands that we now call home, and commit to aligning with the struggle of our Indigenous neighbors and supporting their future. We are all treaty people. Many of us have come here as settlers, immigrants, or newcomers in this generation or generations past, and we acknowledge the over 400-year history of communities of African descent of Canada who are not settlers, who are forcibly displaced from their lands and brought to Turtle Island against their will as part of the transatlantic slave trade. We are indebted to our ancestors and recognize generations past, and today we continue their work, fighting for our collective benefit, denouncing colonial histories, breaking down systemic barriers, improving the health and lives of our communities, and pushing back against anti-Black racism. We are committed to real, impactful change for today and hope for future generations. And now it's my pleasure to introduce you to Julene Butler. She's a child and youth worker with the Toronto District School Board. In her role as a child and youth practitioner, she's helped hundreds of clients manage their emotional and mental challenges. In her first book, Knots in My Laces, Knots in My Tummy, Julene leverages over 19 years of experience working with children and a passion for writing to create an accessible resource that gets parents and young children talking about mental health. She will share with us today her journey as an author and the link between writing and mental wellness and her experiences with others who have found a similar story in her publications. Welcome, Julene.
Thank you. It is a pleasure and an honor to be here. Thank you for having me, Deborah.
Appreciate it. So I'm just going to start off by just asking you to share your origin story with us.
Sure. So my name is Julene Butler. As Deborah mentioned, I am a child and youth worker and an educator as well. I work for the Toronto District School Board, and I'm a parent. I am a daughter. I'm a grandmother. Busy life. And that's really who I am. Most importantly, I am an author, children's book author. And yeah, I take pleasure in, again, being here to share my journey as someone that struggles with anxiety and has written a book about anxiety and just how to manage and cope. And that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm. Well, what made you decide to become involved in the actual storytelling process?
To be honest with you, as an educator and working with a lot of youth who I've seen come through our system, struggle a lot with anxiety. And I've also observed that, as parents, I've seen where there has been a struggle to support and understand exactly what anxiety is even about or what it looks like. I realize also that just with working with the students, I realize that for younger children, they may not have the language or understand exactly what they may be experiencing. And so I thought it was really important to create some sort of platform for more conversation about
Mhm.
mental health, specifically anxiety. And as someone that experienced it and still does experience anxiety, I thought it was even more so important just to be able to share my experience.
So just to follow up on that, how did you figure out sort of the world you wanted to create to embody the story of rising through anxiety in your children's book?
Um, I think again, like I think it for me it was just having those personal experiences and recognizing that it's something that I mean we all struggle. Well, we all experience anxiety.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I think for a lot it can be very debilitating. And for me, I wanted again just to be able to create an opportunity for there to be more discussion about anxiety, especially in children. Yeah.
That's really great because I love this book, you know that. And I know that you did not take the traditional route to self-publish. And can you tell us a little bit more about your decision to go ahead and take charge of your publication journey and how you managed to navigate that for those people who may be thinking about sharing their story and writing about what they know?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think to be honest with you, I mean, I have nothing against, um, doing it the other route, but I
Mhm.
decided to self-publish because, at the time when I first started out, I there was a lot that I didn't know, and I realized that, at least my experience was that there was a lot of financial responsibilities involved in the whole process, and I wasn't at a place financially where I could afford to do all those things. And so, little by little, gradually, I just decided to try to tap into, you know, areas on my own, and which took a lot of time. And I mean, there's ups and downs with everything. And, there were challenging moments as well with doing it on my own because there's a lot to the business that you have to know. And
Mhm.
I, unfortunately, when I first started out and tried to go the other route, which was having someone publish for me, like in every business, there's people that are not necessarily sharing the same vision that you have,
Mhm.
or, their agenda is more of a financial,
Yeah.
making profit, which I mean, at the end of the day, the goal, of course, you'd like to make some money, but for me, it was really about sending a message and getting a message out there as opposed to focusing on the financial piece. Um, so I think with along with all of those challenges for me is what prompted me to sort of do it on my own because of the experiences that I've had. I decided just to figure out things on my own and try to connect with people individually and do it that way.
That's really great. And you chose a subject that you're very close to, which is anxiety. So can you
Yes.
talk with us a little bit more about what the experience was? It was
Yeah.
it was it was it anxiety producing to write about anxiety?
Well, yeah, and I think I'm very passionate this about this book,
Yeah.
especially because I've had my struggle, and still, as I mentioned before, still do struggle with anxiety, and it really brought it home for me as I was writing. I was triggered often by some of the stories of the character in the book because I
Mm.
could see myself experiencing some of those things that this particular boy has experienced. Um, but like I said, I think it really hits home for me. Um, and what prompted me to write about anxiety, I would say, is well, a number of things. I would say, as an educator, again, a lot of the students that would, come through our program, I recognize that they really struggle with anxiety to the severe
Mm.
amount. and how it has affected and impeded their learning and ability to function in a regular
Mhm.
school system. So for me, that was one thing. But I think having experienced trauma, um, and realizing that, you know, it doesn't necessarily go away. And often, if you don't get the support systems that are needed to deal with whatever that traumatic experience is, often it can sort of manifest in anxiety. And
Mhm.
so for me, that's one additional reason why I wanted to share, you know, yeah, share this children's book because
Mhm.
um again, I didn't necessarily understand what was happening to me.
Yeah.
And I had the language, but didn't really have a clear understanding of the connection between a tummy ache, for example, and what that could possibly mean.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's one of the main reasons is just because of my personal experience and walk with anxiety.
So
Yes,
you and I have talked a little bit about culture and the cultural response
yes,
to anxiety and the symptoms of anxiety. So as much as
yes.
you'd like to, would you share with us a little bit about, what it
Yes,
is in this in some Black communities where, anxiety is kind of seen as maybe a bit of a stigmatic thing to talk about and
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
dismissed. So I'll let you have the floor and talk
for
more about
sh
your
for
experiences with that.
sure, for sure. Well, growing up, I'm a born Canadian, but growing up in a West Indian home,
Mhm.
I mean, I think my parents, loved them to pieces, but I think my parents only could give me what they knew.
Mhm.
And I think, I wanna say that mental health has probably been around for years, um, but we haven't gotten to the place, as you mentioned, where we can talk about it and not feel embarrassed or ashamed. Um, and so I realize that it is taboo within, and I wouldn't just say the Caribbean culture or my culture. I'm sure there's many cultures that sort of unfortunately dismiss the topic.
Yeah.
And that could be because of a number of reasons. I think lack of understanding. I think your personal experiences, shame, embarrassment. You know, again, there could be a number of reasons why it is not talked about more. And
Mhm.
so I really wanted to break that stigma. Um, really at an early age. And that's why I wrote the children's book. But you know, I- anxiety and in general mental health, mental illness is becoming more prevalent. We're seeing it not just because of COVID, um, but we're seeing it now manifest in so many different ways. And I think slowly but surely, I'm hoping that we can get to the place where we can talk about it more and
Mhm.
where we're creating a safe space for young and old to be able to say I'm struggling, and it's okay. um, for me, as I said, I think if I could reflect back on when I was much younger, it wouldn't be a table conversation. It wouldn't be
Right.
something that would be accepted. And it would probably be labeled as something else, like, oh, you're just being this or being that, right?
Mhm.
Whereas now I think with, the media, with what's happening within our society, I think slowly um, it's people are starting to talk about it, but I still think we have a little bit of a way to go um, at accepting that, it is okay to struggle. It is normal to feel this way, but hey, let's look at that. Let's explore that more. And let's look at how we can get from here and rise above. And you can still function within society
Mhm.
quite normally, um, regardless of struggling with anxiety, right? So,
Right.
yeah.
And for me, I love your book because the stealth about it is that, it's a children's book, but it's really for the adults as well.
Yeah, that's right. And
As the
that was
adults are reading this book, they're getting the message as well.
that's right. And I thought about it, and that's really what I personally that was sort of my method to the madness, is having a book where, both the child, the young person, and the adult could benefit. Because I think it will raise, my goal is, at least, is that it will encourage more conversation,
Mhm,
and curiosity, um and you know what? Once the conversation starts to happen, that's the first step, right?
mhm.
Yeah. So,
So in the conversations that you have as an educator and as an author now, what is the role of representation? Not only is this a book about anxiety, but it's a book about a child of color, right? So what does that do in your interactions with people who see not only the subject matter, but who has anxiety, and how does that play into when you do book fairs and book signings and talk with people that have bought your book, that the representation, the role of that?
well, I think that, I'm glad you said that, Deborah, because I think that somehow um, some of us have a perception that this is just mental health, or, different illnesses, or specifically anxiety in this case, is sort of you know, it has like a certain color or ethnicity
Mhm,
attached to it. And I think that is such a myth. And so I am proud as a woman of color to be able to show different, that, you know what? Yes, I look like the character in the book.
mhm,
Um, and guess what? I do struggle, and this
mhm,
is what I struggle with. And there's no color or race or religion attached to it. And so I'm pleased to say that that is something that comes out in my place of practice, and when I go to different events. I think people are really appreciating that they see a woman of color, and
mhm,
that they can make a connection, whether it be through somebody that they work with,
mhm,
or their child, or a young person that they have some sort of interaction with. They're now making connection with, wow, like they're commenting on the character, and the fact that the character doesn't resemble what sort of the perception or the stereotype is,
mhm.
right? That it's this particular race or culture of persons. Yeah. So,
There have been a couple of previous discussions during Black Mental Health Week talking specifically about the trope of the strong Black woman, and how that's so limiting, because asking for help shouldn't be an act of defiance. It should be normal. It's actually a sign of strength to ask for help.
mhm,
And
absolutely.
have you come across that sort of like resistance, whether in your peer group or in other places, where the fact that you're so open about your anxiety is seen as, you don't talk your business out in the street kind of thing?
And I've experienced, I would say that I've experienced that. I'm promising that I'm going to behave, but I want to
Okay.
say that I've experienced that, within, if I were to say, within church communities,
Mhm,
where, you know, it's one of those situations where it's not necessarily accepted. And, um, especially a woman of color, and you're supposed to be strong, and, you know, um, generally, I think because I'm so open and I don't care.
mhm,
I do care, but with all due respect, I think because I am very comfortable in saying, this has been my journey, but
mhm,
look at me now. I am functioning. As I mentioned before, I'm an educator. I'm working within the system. I'm a parent of three children. I am functioning. I am
mhm,
author of four books, and I'm not stopping. And so I think, although I'm sure that there's been occasions where I get a little bit of that um, static, I am comfortable to say that I'm sort of rising above that and using it almost for strength to encourage me to keep pushing because it's something that we have to talk about. It's something that we need to address. It's something that
Mhm,
we can't ignore. Um, and it's affecting a lot of our young people and our
mhm.
older people. So yes, I have gotten some static, but I'm here. I'm not going anywhere.
Well, I'm glad you're here because I want you to go into, showing us some more about your books. But before we do, can you share with us a little bit more about some of the influences you've had, the positive influences that you've had? I know you've had some, interactions that may have been less than supportive of your being so open and authentic, which we really benefit from that, and it's very hard. But along the way, who are your positive influences?
You know what? My mother. My mother has always been, and it still is a strong influence in my life. My children, my children have really taught me the lesson of it's okay, mom.
Mhm,
It's okay. I learn a lot from them, and they've really encouraged me to keep doing what I'm doing because they too realize that there's a message out there that needs to be heard. And mom, if you're okay with sending that message and sharing, then do it. So my family, um, I've also worked with a lot of other authors that have been extremely supportive and encouraging of myself, um, my coach, um, social workers, therapists. There's a lot
mhm,
of people within my community that have really supported me, good friends, family friends that have seen my journey of the girl that would hide in the library in public school
mm.
because she was afraid to do an autobiography to someone that is now on a platform such as this where I can share that, you know what, you can rise above, you can get through this, so I'm really appreciative of all those persons and even yourself, Deborah, of giving me this opportunity to be able to share. This means much to me. um yeah.
I when I met you at the book fair, I just thought immediately the next time I have an opportunity to find someone to talk to a larger audience, it's going to be Julene. And you and I also talked a little bit before we bring up your beautiful book about, how you chose the illustrator, how you
Yes,
chose the
yes,
artwork. So tell us a little bit
yes.
more about how that went.
Yes, yes. So initially, when I, first thought about writing my book, my brother is a graphic artist, and I thought of, keeping it home, keeping it in the
Mhm,
family, and using him. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out. But he was very supportive in me connecting with another illustrator. And so I did. And unfortunately, that second illustrator situation didn't quite work out, which is fine because this is all sort of experience
mhm,
and learning. I was able to connect with a beautiful young woman who lives in Pakistan. And,
mhm,
I really saw her skills and she was able to connect with what my vision was and making sure that the illustrations match the story and representation matters a lot to me, and so she was very sensitive about that as well, and
mhm,
choosing the character and choosing the right tones and shades and all of that. So that's who I'm currently connected with, is an illustrator in Pakistan,
mhm.
by the name of Asia, beautiful young woman. And I just thought that, I feel that everyone deserves, a chance to shine. And I wanted to help her shine because she's amazing. She's very skilled. And yeah, so that's sort of my illustration journey.
So I'm ready to see the book. I'm ready for you to
Oh,
share it with everybody.
sure.
So let's bring that up and talk us through
Okay.
what do you want to share with us about it?
Yes. So I'm going to do this little reading here. So my book is called Knots in My Laces, Knots in My Tummy, written by myself and illustrations by Aja Araza. Sorry, I apologize.
That's okay.
Arazag uh, Rang Zeb. Sorry. Um, yes. So that is my book,
Mhm.
and I'll just take you through the story. I like to read with expression, so pardon me. Um, would you like me to go through the acknowledgement?
You take us through the book
Okay,
however you'd like us to experience it.
okay. I just got to move the screen a bit. There we go. So, writing my first book was both harder than I initially thought and more rewarding than I could ever have imagined. This labor
Mhm.
of love would not have been possible without the support and help of some significant people in my life. First, I want to thank God for guiding my life. I am perpetually grateful for his divine support and grace. Scripture from the Bible that I have included. The Bible says the blessings of the Lord brings wealth without painful toil. Okay. Proverbs 10, verse 22. And I believe this wealth refers to much more than money. I'm blessed every day. And for this, I say thank you. To my dear husband and forever partner, Clive Williamson, I definitely acknowledge you and thank you for always telling me, do your thing, baby.
Mm.
Reminded me that it's okay to take time out to focus on what was important to me without any apology at all. You make our life together simple, and your love and support are invaluable to me. My heartfelt appreciation goes out to my mother, my dear mother, Cecilia Butler, who has always been and continues to be my number one motivator. Mom, words cannot express how thankful I am to have you in my life. You have always encouraged me to follow my passion and my dreams. My warmest love and thanks goes out to my children, Javante, Sarah, and Rakeem. Thank you for your support and encouragement throughout the amazing journey. You guys keep me grounded, and I love you dearly. A special thanks to my brother, Mark Butler. Thank you for your prayers, blessings, for speaking greatness into my life. Also to my brother, Chris Butler. Thank you for encouraging me to push past the setbacks and to use them as a stepping stone. You always had a quote or a word to uplift me when I felt discouraged during this process. I am grateful for the times you simply shared something that connected with my spirit and reminded me that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Lastly, I am blessed to have friends in my life who believe in my vision and continually cheer me on. Thank you for all your support.
It's fantastic.
Thank you. So, just a little bit about anxiety. Okay, so anxiety is, as we talked about, becoming more prevalent among younger children,
Mhm.
even those as young as 5 years old. Studies show that 1 in 8 children today have some type of anxiety disorder, exhibiting a wide variety of symptoms that range from excessive worrying to sudden panic.
Mm.
Unfortunately, it is quite challenging to identify anxiety in younger children because they cannot yet recognize and clearly articulate the symptoms that they may be experiencing. While anxiety is a normal reaction to stressful events and situations, an anxiety disorder can disrupt a child's day to day life. Anxiety disorders come in various forms, including generalized anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, social anxiety disorder, separation anxiety disorder, post traumatic stress disorder, selective mutism, and panic disorder.
Mm.
Although many signs and symptoms are similar, only a psychologist or psychiatrist can help to diagnose the above mentioned disorders. Knots in My Laces, Knots in My Tummy has been created especially for children to illustrate various symptoms of anxiety and help them identify how these might be expressed in various situations. This book is a useful resource for parents and caregivers, providing an accessible tool to start conversation around what their child is feeling and how they can help. Helping children recognize their anxiety is often the first step towards managing symptoms and healing.
I really love that you put that in the beginning of it. I really love that first part.
Thank you. So here's the story. In the morning, when it's time to go to school, my tummy hurts. It feels like knots in my tummy, just like the knots in my laces. When I go outside for recess, I don't like to play with the other kids. I always stay by myself until the bell rings. So this young man is isolating himself, which is a sign
Mhm.
and a symptom of anxiety. When I sit on the carpet for story time, I like to look around. I hear noises in the hallway, birds flying by the window, and the clock ticking back and forth. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Sometimes I even forget that it's story time. So if you notice in this page here, the little boy, he's looking out the window and he's
Mhm.
looking at the bird and he's distracted. So distraction is a sign and a symptom of anxiety. I never want my mommy to leave when she drops me off at the babysitter's house. I cry and cry and cry because I'm so worried when we are apart. So, this young man here is experiencing separation anxiety. Sometimes when I feel tired, I get really angry and yell at my brother. So, what he's experiencing is irritability. Irritability.
Mhm.
Yes. Okay. I feel scared when my family wants me to meet new people. I hide in my closet and hope they don't see me. So this young man here is experiencing fear, and fear is a huge symptom of anxiety. Fear,
Mhm.
fear, yes. Oh, there we go. Do we need to go back one more, or is that okay? Yep,
There we are. Yeah.
yep. At bedtime, mommy tucks me in. She says prayers with me and kisses me goodnight, but I still can't fall asleep. Ah, I toss and I turn all night. In bed, I keep my favorite nightlight on all night. I am afraid of the dark because the shadows look like monsters. Rawr! I cry for mummy when scary dreams wake me up at night. Do you ever feel like there's knots in your tummy, like the knots in your laces? Sometimes we get knots in our laces or in our shoelaces that we can't untie on our own. Some children get tummy aches that feel like those knots, especially if they're really worried about something. So if you ever feel this way, please tell your mommy and your daddy, and they'll know exactly what to do. So right here, I've included a glossary. So I just go
Mhm.
the words that I use throughout the book. So a tummy ache is a generalized ache or pain in the abdomen, often associated with anxiety. Social settings, that really is the physical and the social setting in which people live or in which something happens or develops. Anxiety can make navigating a new social setting very stressful. So when I just to go back to social settings here, when I think about, um, children or students transitioning from one school to the other or new
Mhm.
location. So that would be an example of, a social setting.
Mhm.
School anxiety is the next one. So that is severe feelings of fear, panic, and nervousness with regards to school attendance. This may be a result of many social and emotional factors. Okay, so often when, as an educator, when we observe a student that may not be attending, um, having school anxiety can be one of the reasons, right?
Mhm, mhm,
That they may not be attending. So the next one is fear. Fear is the anticipated feeling of danger or threat. Younger children may feel fearful at night and may have nightmares or be anxious when meeting new people. And we
mhm,
saw that in the book with this young man. Separation anxiety is the fear of being separated from a particular person. And this was another definition that we saw used throughout the story with that young man who was being separated from mom, right? Being
mhm.
dropped off at school or daycare. Trouble concentrating is difficulty maintaining attention and focus, sometimes associated with certain types of anxiety. And so we also saw this in the book when the little boy, he was in the classroom, and we see this a lot as educators. Um, you know, the teacher's teaching the lesson, and he's looking out the window and he's looking at the clock and the bird. So he is definitely having trouble concentrating. Irritability is a feeling of agitation or feeling cranky and grumpy. And we saw that when, the young boy was just feeling, he was very annoyed. And I believe he was yelling at his brother. Okay. Restlessness is the inability to remain still, quiet, and calm. Sensitivity to sounds, the
Mhm.
experience of distress when exposed to loud sounds. And so we saw this uh, in the story when, the little boy had his hands over his ears. The brother was using the vacuum and it was just too loud,
All right.
right? Fear of getting hands dirty. So, obsessive thoughts and behaviors of being clean because of dirt or germs. And we saw this where, the little boy was concerned about, getting paint or crayon or marker on his hands while they were drawing. He didn't want to get his hands dirty. So those are some, definitions of the words that I've used in the book, um, for parents um, to have, again, discussion with their child or children about some of, the words that they've seen in the stories.
So when you've gone to book fairs and you've had these books available and parents and other people have walked up to you, do you find yourself sort of like going over some of these items with people as they're saying, oh, I think this is something that I recognize. Do you find yourself actually sort of doing a little bit of counseling on the spot?
I try not to. It's been hard sometimes. I find that parents or, teachers or, persons of interest will pick up the book, and as they start to flip through the pages, I see them nodding and I, see them going through the terms. I sort of wait for their cue before I say, hey, yeah, like, I've had some conversation with some parents that they'll actually say, oh yeah, my son or my daughter, you know, has this experience, always having tummy aches. And so I'll refer back to, well, that is one of the signs and symptoms. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a
Right.
clinician. I can't diagnose, but I'm simply trying to say, hey, pay attention. If this is becoming concerning, or if you're noticing it more prevalent, or if it's interfering with their ability to function, then that calls for a conversation with your doctor.
Right, right. Always make sure that that person, like you said in the very first part of the book, this is something
Right.
that you need to be able to have a professional because, also there needs to be objectivity as well. If a child's
That's
having a
right.
stomach ache, it could be many things,
That's right.
but you really
That's
need to
right.
have objectivity. And
That's right.
so you have a companion publication to this now coming out as well. Would you like to talk a little bit about your toolkit?
Yes, I am. So it's actually done, but I'm just waiting on printed copies. So yes, the toolkit toolkit guide to managing anxiety is sort of the sequel to Knots in My Laces.
Mhm.
Some of the feedback that I've gotten, which I think is very useful, is okay, so now that we know this is what it potentially looks like, what do we do?
Mhm.
So I've taken that feedback and really, written the sequel to Knots in My Laces because I think it's important to now incorporate some coping mechanisms and strategies for parents or caregivers or educators, um, because that is the question, right? Now that we know there is this struggle, what can we do? I've
Mhm.
tried this, and this. We need more ideas, right? And so that book is on back order. It is available on my website for orders. Um,
It's
yeah,
JuleneButlerBooks.ca.
that's right,
Just tell
Julie.
everybody where
That's
to
right.
go.
That's right. It is, and yeah, it
I'll
is
put it in the
available on
chat.
my website. Yes. Um, so yeah, that's the most recent release.
And what else do you have planned to take this series further? Because I know that's not the only thing that you're going to be doing. Because, like you said, there needs to be more of this.
Yes. Um, so I think what I eventually want to get to the place of doing is possibly podcasts.
Oh,
Um, I'm also looking at providing lesson plans because I think that these books are not just great for at home. I think they can be useful in the classroom
right.
or, mental health facilities where children will be able to pick this book up and, read it and feel that they make some connection or possibly have some questions that they have lingering in their mind answered. And so I think lesson plans for teachers, educators, and all the other support systems within our community, that they'll be able to access that on my website. I'm hoping to do that soon. Um, and I do honestly have some additional books that I haven't quite released yet,
Right.
but it's coming. So there will be a release of a book about bullying
Mm,
because I think that's also an important theme that we need to talk about. And so
yes.
um, that is that is going to be coming out soon. So I'm working on a few different projects.
So I want to talk a little bit more about the Be Well for you.
Yes,
How do you, as you're always managing anxiety. You're making this look easy, but
I
you're
know
always
it's
managing
really not.
anxiety. I
It's
know it's
really not.
not.
It's
Uh,
really not.
and I have to
Yeah,
tell you, unless we said it, well, nobody would know.
that's right. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. But sort of, about, this about the being your authentic self is hard.
Yes.
And being well in that being of your authentic self can be hard. So talk to us a little bit more about how you do it.
Gosh, I wonder how I do it. I think um how do I do it? That's a very good question.
We've asked the previous speakers, and they've said some technical things like I go for a run, or
Yeah.
I stay away from the screen an hour before I go to bed
Yeah.
or something. I cook or something.
I think to be honest with you, like some of my coping mechanisms, I enjoy listening to, relaxing music. So I'll listen to jazz, or I may read. I do enjoy going for walks. I enjoy simply sometimes doing absolutely nothing,
Mm-hmm.
just sitting still. I really enjoy stillness, quiet, where I can think and maybe not necessarily about whatever it is causing or creating anxiety, but just stillness relaxes me,
Mm-hmm.
um, where I can just sort of meditate. Um, what else do I do? I enjoy cooking. I enjoy eating. So that kind of keeps me busy and preoccupied. But I think most importantly for me, above all, is being able to talk about it.
Mhm.
Um, I would say I'm an introvert as much as many don't believe. Um, but there's something about being able to sort of download, debrief, I'll use the clinical term, debriefing, about my day or
Mhm.
my thoughts or my struggle or what I'm feeling. That is very important to me to be able to have that safety net or platform where I can stop everything and say, okay, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm
Mhm.
experiencing. Um, and yeah, that's key for me, is being able to get rid of it, throw it away in the atmosphere. I don't always do that well, but I am learning. Um, yeah, those are some of my coping mechanisms.
Well, those are great coping mechanisms. And I also noticed that you did mention faith quite a bit in your
Yes.
acknowledgments.
Yes, yes. Prayer is huge for me, and journaling. Yeah, I can't believe I forgot to mention that. Prayer and journaling is very important to me. I really try to start my morning, start my day with
Mhm.
prayer, end my evening, my night with prayer. Um, and really trying to tap into that spiritual side.
Mhm.
It's what keeps me grounded. It's what keeps me positive. Um, and it's what keeps me believing that I will be able to. I keep using this word, but that's what keeps coming to me is rising above
Mhm.
and knowing that every experience is really to make me stronger, and there's learning that can come out of that.
Mhm.
Um, So that is key for me, is being able to try to connect with a higher power, um, and to help sort of relax, clear my thoughts, physically relax my body, um, and hope in knowing that tomorrow's a brighter day, tomorrow's a new day. It will get better.
Mhm.
And as much as it looks like I'm not struggling, it's funny. I'll be very transparent that today, as I said, working in the school, today was the last day before March break. Um, and I had a very trying day. And I thought to myself, no, this cannot. I had a trying day where I'm gonna be honest, there were some tears in my office,
Mhm.
but you know what? I'm happy to say that again, I was able to come on this live, and it's very important for me to be real, my real self, authentic me. um and so yeah, there are those moments where I still struggle.
Absolutely.
um
And
and
I
I
want to talk a little bit more about, you
Yes,
said that you journal, because
yes,
writing is different than journaling.
yes,
So talk with me a little bit more about, and I have a lot of journals and I'm constantly
yes, yeah,
both writing and
yeah.
journaling. So talk a little bit about what journaling does for you.
So for me, journaling is it's actually, it's different in the sense that it makes me feel as though I am actually communicating with another person. It's
Hmm.
weird. It takes me out of myself, and I feel like I have permission to literally empty. It's almost like the words are going in the book or on the leaf of paper. Like, um, it's very different than writing a story, um, or writing a book. Um, because once I am done writing in my journal, I
Hmm.
feel such a release. I feel so light. Um, and I feel like, okay, I can sit up straight now and I can move on with my day.
Right.
So, unfortunately, it's not always convenient for me to journal when I'm at work,
Mhm.
so sometimes, um, when I'm not able to journal, those are the moments where I'm doing the self-talk thing. I talk to myself a lot. And yes, I do answer. People walk by my office and they're like, Julene, who's in there with you? Me, myself, and I. But that's where I use self-talk, and I'm really just like, okay, Julene, it's gonna be okay.
Right.
Um, you need to sort of figure out where these feelings are coming from. What
Mhm.
is your trigger? What is the trigger? Um, and really check myself. I think it's important um, to check yourself, because we don't always necessarily label what's really going on.
Right.
Sometimes it's not the situation that's in front of you. Sometimes it's something that may have happened in the week that's sort of coming back up. And this is why I'm a big believer in communication. I'm a big believer in dealing with your stuff however
Right.
you can, because sometimes it does resurface, right?
Yes. And we
So,
have a question. Do you think that
yeah,
your
sure.
journaling helps anxiety? Do you think journaling is a
Yes,
tool to help anxiety?
100%. I do believe that being able to um, get it down on paper. Um, I mean, at least for me, it's very effective in being able to write. It relaxes me.
Mhm.
It helps me to sort of change the way I'm perceiving things. Cognitively, the
Mhm.
focus is on what's on paper and not so much what the problem is.
Yes.
Um, so that's what it does for me.
And I know sometimes people say, "Oh, I don't journal because I don't want to have to sit down and do that every day." But the thing is it does take a bit of discipline to not start a
Absolutely.
book of blank pages and then just leave it. But
Oh,
I know I look forward to it. I know that
yes,
after a while, it's something that it isn't. Oh, I didn't journal today. It's like every other
that's
day I
right.
think, oh, I really want to write this down. And like you
That's right.
said, other things come out. It's
Yeah,
very you kind of reveal things to yourself as you write.
yeah,
And that's the difference between you sitting down and writing a story, saying, I want to tell the
right.
story, there's an outcome, there's a point to it, and just saying, I'm going to just free write and see what happens.
That's right. And it doesn't necessarily, there's not necessarily a structure to it or an order. It's just sort of your feelings, your thoughts, your experiences, what's coming out. And yeah, I find it very helpful for me. And I would definitely recommend it. Like, you know, um, if you feel that you are, struggling, and really trying to find an outlet, try it.
Yeah.
Try it. Yeah. And it could be as simple as, what am I feeling right now? Yeah, it could just be that, like, or I'm angry. Okay,
Mhm.
let's break the layers of that. What is that about? You know? Yeah.
Well, I think that you're helping a lot of people with what you're doing, and I am so
Oh, thank
very, very
you. Thank
appreciative for
you.
your time tonight. We have a couple of minutes left. I see we had a chat that I spoke to. If there's anybody else, any questions? Someone says, when you journal, do you write or type? And I think it sounds as if you write.
Yes, I write.
Okay.
I
Some people
write.
do type. I've tried
Yes.
that too, but it's not the same. It's not the same. I have my
Yeah, there's
specialty
something.
pen and
Yeah, there's
something
something about the
about,
pen. Yeah.
there's almost like there's a conduit that happens and I'm holding the pen. It's like I'm really
Yes.
putting myself on
Yes.
this paper, but
That's
but
right.
it's, people do journal. People are very, into the laptop and typing, and they may type, they may put their thoughts down faster
Yeah,
if they're typing than
absolutely.
if they're writing. So that's
Yeah.
another way of doing it as well. So that was a really
Yeah.
good question. But with a couple of minutes left, I want to thank you so much for joining us. You can go to julienebutlerbooks.ca and find her books and see which book she has coming up. Please fill out the survey in the chat. That is going to take you to a very short feedback document so we can understand how you enjoyed your session and give us any more thoughts about what else you'd like to see for next year during Black Mental Health Week. If you're going to post anything about Black Mental Health Week, please also include the hashtag BMHW 2023, Black Mental Health, or BU Well in your social media posts. And please follow us on blackmentalhealthweek.ca on Instagram. We have some other events coming up tomorrow. for Black Mental Health Week. So go to the calendar and find that out. And we have a closing ceremony if you're in Toronto at the Toronto Archives on Sunday, starting at 11 o'clock, which is going to have spoken word. We're going to have ballet dancers. We're going to have face painting. It's family friend day, and we're going to have free food, free good food. So come on out and join us between 11 and 4, Spadina and DuPont. It's right about to DuPont Station. Come on up the stairs to the Toronto Archives and join us for a full roster of events for the end of Black Mental Health Week. I see everyone saying thanks to you, Julene, and I think there's a lot more people that are really appreciating you right now
Aw.
than you understand. This is being
You're-
recorded. We're going to put
Oh,
it on
you're
the
welcome.
blackmentalhealthweek.ca site for
Amazing.
other people to enjoy it as well, or for you to enjoy it again. And so
Amazing.
with 3 minutes to spare, I'm going to wish you a
Yes.
good night.
Yes, and you as well, Deborah, and thank you again for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you for all the viewers and the listeners. You've been amazing. Thank you for the questions. It was wonderful.
Knots in my laces, knots in my tummy. Go and get it.
That's right.
I appreciate
Yeah.
you very much. Good night.
Good night.